Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan here for what's not going to be a very pretty film review Inside the Birds podcast. Of course, the Eagles losing to the Washington Commanders Monday night, first loss of the season, 8-1. And a lot of things went wrong, both defensively and offensively, Adam. So it's kind of crazy. It's the middle of November, and we're about to do our first film review that's not going to be overwhelmingly positive. That's a testament to the heck of the run that the Eagles were on there.
You know, when you look at the situation, so Monday night they lost. Tuesday was a typical postmortem. As you said, it was the first loss. So it was typical. I mean, I could have guessed it, and I did, that Gannon was going to get trashed by the fans. He did.
Fire everybody.
Right. Well, that one too, of course. No. They didn't. This time they didn't. They wanted Gannon fired. They wanted certain people benched. And we get it. We were talking about this on our pregame show with Trey and Jason Avant.
Right.
Anytime something happens on defense, they point to the defensive coordinator. They don't want to point at the players. And look, this is the difference between us and pretty much everyone else. There are no sacred cows, so to speak. We tell you what we hear, and sometimes it's not pretty. It's just, as you said, to set this up, it's not going to be pretty. There were some good individual performances, but overall, it's not just the tackling, folks. It's a lot more complex than that, and they're going to have some philosophical decisions over the next year. Really, quite frankly, after their playoff run is done, whether it's a Super Bowl or not, they're gonna if Gannon's back, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, they're gonna have to take a look at something as we set this up. There's some issues here that really started in week 1 against Detroit.
They have, and you can argue they go back to even last year schematically, personnel. We'll get into that. Obviously, we have a short turnaround week here. We'll have our normal podcast Friday morning that will preview Eagles Colts, and then on Sunday we're right back at Rivers Casino for the ITB pregame show, ITB pregame live. Myself, Adam, Greg Cosell will be back with us. Jason Avant. Shout out to Trey Thomas. Did a great job filling in for Greg Cosell again on our pregame show Monday night to preview the game against the Commanders. And if you guys didn't see it, he did an unbelievable job. We'll probably cut it up and get it on our YouTube platform. We do that when Jason does really good instructional stuff too. Trey Thomas did a really excellent job breaking down some of the issues we had seen in the prior 2 weeks with pass protection, offensive line, specifically when the team is on a silent count, and everything that kind of goes into the offensive line communication, starting from the center out to the tackle, using the silent count in particular. That was so educational, so in-depth. We got a lot of feedback on it. So if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's on our YouTube channel. It's the pregame show. It's a live video, so you got to go to the live area. But Trey did an unbelievable job. And, of course, people are loving him on our post-game show, which he'll be back on Sunday. Myself, Adam, Trey Thomas for ITB Post-Game Live, 4:30. And then this week, Adam, you have your power rankings up. You got a new number 1. So everybody should go to InsideTheBirds.com to check out where the Eagles are after losing their first game and what the top echelon looks like. I love your power rankings, man. You have some really interesting remarks about teams on the way up or down. It's been great. And as far as our Patreon subscribers go, we will this week, let me tell you, in the next 7 to 10 days, we will have our next Chalk Talk series interview up. We got a former NFL head coach that'll be on with us. So that'll be fantastic. So if you're on Patreon, look out for that. We'll be doing that in our next Ask ITB live stream very soon. It's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. If you are not yet subscribed, please do. We've got some nice perks and prizes along with the bonus exclusive podcasts. We're doing some giveaways. And, of course, your Discord chat that Adam does 8 to 8:30 every Wednesday night as well.
Correct. Oh, yeah. The former head coach, before we move on to the tape stuff, he said, could you wait a little bit? I want to watch Hurts against Washington, and I want to watch the Eagles offense. So he wanted to watch the All-22. And I love that he said that, because we were going to tape it earlier this week. He goes, no, let me watch that tape. I watched enough of them, but I want to get a better idea. And then he sent me some notes when I woke up on Tuesday morning.
Oh,
Just
nice.
funny. It was actually just from watching it and going back in his mind from all these quarterbacks he coached. It's just interesting. It's always interesting to see how coaches see it different from a layman like us and the public. It's and how the sky's not falling, because I guess this guy's won a lot of games. He goes, we probably will ask him this. He said this actually losing is not the worst thing, because you particularly in this case, I think we all know this, because some of the issues on defense continue to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and now it comes to the point where it's a boiling point. Like this has got to stop. And now you have the injuries, how they're going to deal with this, and it's just I'm interested to see what this coach talks to us about. So this is going to be fun to delve into that.
It's a great point. It's a time of reckoning for the Eagles, especially as it comes to run defense. They really have to kind of look in the mirror. For the first time, they are mortal. They have a loss, and amazingly, one loss, just one loss. It doesn't change the whole picture, but the margin of error now for your separation from a team like the Giants, who only have 2 losses, the Minnesota Vikings, who only have 1 loss. Now, granted, you beat them, so you're like a game and a half above, but nonetheless, with the schedule coming up and a lot of really good running backs and running games on the schedule, obviously run defense has to be something that this team looks in the mirror at. And we'll talk about when we get into the X's and O's and film review, what exactly they have to look at and why, but it is something they have to do. So that is a good point about, we made it on our show on the Fanatic on Tuesday night, where we've been told by a lot of people, coaches, players, that human nature, when you win games and you do your corrections, the things you don't do well, even in wins, you just don't, it doesn't, it's like the vitriol isn't there the way it is when you lose games. For example, if the Eagles had won the game Monday night, that fumble by Quez Watkins, they would have gone over it in corrections. What do you got to do? Be more ball secure. But it hurts more. It stings more when you're going through it after a loss, when you know that directly contributed to the loss. So again, that's human nature. All right, let's talk about some of the injuries, right? The injuries that add to the insult of losing. Yeah. Because Dallas Goedert, the latest to be a casualty there.
Yeah. So as of Wednesday morning, I think we've heard this. You and I have heard the same thing. IR is a consideration. They'll continue to evaluate it. It's really interesting how they handle the Avonte Maddox situation. So because it was a Monday night game, you have until Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. If your team is playing on Monday night, you don't. If you had a Sunday game, you got to put them on IR the day before if you want to put them on IR by 4 p.m. Eastern. So they actually had the day of the game to do it, and they waited, they evaluated, and it was longer than we thought. Wow, it's a minimum of 4 games. The earliest he could return, now week 10 counts because they did put him on IR before the game. So Maddox, the earliest he could come back is week 14 at the Giants. You saw Josiah Scott. We'll get into him a little later. Josh Sweat hurt his leg. By the way, 4 p.m. Eastern today is Wednesday. They have to list their first injury report because it's a Sunday game. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are the injury reports this week. So we'll see if they list Sweat and with what, whether it's an ankle, leg, or knee. It seemed to me leg or knee injury. And then A.J. Brown, who clearly was limited. Wasn't just our eyes saw it. Apparently, it looks like on the tape. He didn't have the energy in his leg that got hurt.
Yeah, it looks like he rolled it a little bit. I mean, that's the kind of vibe that I got. Yeah.
Yeah, foot or ankle. We'll see how they list it. And then this is his first, by the way, this is his first time he's been listed on the injury report this season.
Yeah.
He might have had illness.
We know that was one of the bigger. Yeah, no, for a real injury, right? An injury that's a non-illness injury. We know that was sort of part of the decision-making process for the Titans, whether to extend or wind up, trading him to the Eagles. Was that as great of a player as he was? There was a lot of maintenance there involved with him because of his injuries. But you're right; he has been unscathed up until now.
Yeah. So I've learned my lesson when it doesn't look like anything. This is the first time I think I ever covered injury live. It was Jamal Lewis, 01, 02, one of those years. He very innocuous play in a practice and training camp. And actually, I asked him. I said, "Hey, is he coming back to practice?" He should be fine. He'll practice tomorrow. He wound up tearing his ACL. So you can look like nothing, and then it turns to be something because we don't. I know our friend Dr. David Chow came on our show years ago, the former Chargers team doctor. He's the guy who does the video analysis. He's phenomenal at it. His hit rate on getting it right is like 95%. So he's great at it, because he could nail the ligament. What if it's a knee injury? Kind of whether it's on the side, he could tell when it's an MCL or an ACL or PCL. But this one with Brown was tough to find out. So we'll find out there, and we'll get into the tape because, man, with him limited, that's part of why they didn't score for 2 quarters. It looked like they were going to have a huge scoring game when they scored 14 points. Hey, they scored a lot in the first quarter. But the second quarter was not their friend this time.
No, it was not. And obviously the offense would take a big hit with Dallas Goedert. I mean, depending on how long he's going to be out, Adam, because then what you're really looking at is Jack Stoll. Jack Stoll becoming your number 1 tight end. And Jack can do some good things. The good thing about it is when you're out there in 11 personnel, Jack can block, Jack can catch. The only difference is that he's not nearly the explosive athlete that Goedert is and doesn't give you that presence downfield or run after the catch that you would get from Goedert. And then, of course, if Grant Calcaterra is your number 2 tight end, he really is just a receiving tight end. So you're sort of it's difficult if you're in 12 personnel really kind of trying to fool anybody out there. Or even if you're an 11 and Calcaterra is your only tight end, then you kind of giving away what you're doing.
Exactly, yeah. So Calcaterra could play. The Eagles are like most teams. They have the Y position, which is what Stoll plays, the inline blocker. The F position, which is the move position. You'll see him aligned behind the tackle. You'll see that, and he's done it in his career. But Calcaterra is just a move tight end. He's not inline at all. He really can't block anyone at this point. He's a guy that unfortunately his career was derailed due to concussions, but he's super athletic. Stoll is a little bit better athlete than people give him credit for. In fact, he was on his way. His final year at Nebraska, he had a very odd injury. We're told it was MCL and a couple other things with it. It just crushed him, where he just was not a non-factor in his final year, and that got him undrafted. But you're 100% right. Like, Goedert is such a stud talent, and he's a great blocker too. That Stoll's a very good blocker, no doubt. But Goedert is an amazing. He's really right now. He's a top 5 tight end. He was headed for around 85 catches. Scored again. It's too bad. This is devastating to their pass game because it really we don't know about A.J. Brown right now if he's going to be limited in this game coming up here. We know Goedert's definitely not playing. This is I hate to say it's a game changer. This changes everything. Boy, the coaches now they're going to be challenged here. Devontae Smith's role. So let's move this forward. Devontae Smith's role is going to have to grow.
Yep.
Then Quez Watkins will get a little bit of love here. The teacher's pet, Zach Pascal, who blocked very well in the run game in this game. You saw him play a little bit more than he normally does.
Right.
They're going to have to find guys to make plays. And goodness gracious, maybe the running backs might get a little bit more used in the pass game.
Yeah, because the tight end screen had been a really killer part of their offense. Yes. I mean, the tight end screen had basically replaced the running back screen in their offense because that's how good Goedert was at making yards after the catch. Kenny Gainwell not catching the ball real well right now, so we'll see. But Miles Sanders has caught the ball well this year in the very limited times that they've thrown it to him. So it will be interesting to see if the coaching staff decides to dial up a little bit more in the passing game for Miles with Goedert sidelined. So they're gonna have to, like you said, you got to figure out something to do there.
Yeah,
and God,
I was just gonna say they have to. They'll have to, the thing is now, because we're in week 11, so if Goedert goes on IR, he's out 11, 12, 13, 14, so the earliest he could return would be 15. And we're not even, I don't know about you, but based on the check, I'm not sure exactly if it's a dislocation or separation. Separation, you could come back earlier and you harness it. It depends on, he jammed it. We just don't know what it is. And it's, it's just, and for fantasy folks, so if you can only have one, would you get any of the Eagles, rest of their tight ends for fantasy?
Hold that thought. We're going to talk about that in just one second when we talk about Mojo. I just want to finish off the injuries because you talked about the challenge that awaits the team without a guy like Dallas Goedert, so important to the offense. Well, the challenge continues really for them as they still have 2 games to go without Jordan Davis, their big nose tackle. We've talked about what he does and what he can be to run defense. Again, we've said this many times. Greg Cosell has talked about it. It's not like he gives you 20 great snaps a game. He's a rookie. He's still learning a whole lot, gets tired quickly. But I think you even said it on our show on The Fanatic. Even if he gave you just 4 to 5 really good run defensive snaps against Washington, that could have helped change the game on any of those third and short conversions that kept the drive alive. So he's definitely going to miss the Colts game, and he's definitely going to miss the Green Bay game. That would be that would complete the 4 games. You have to miss 4 games when you're on IR, right?
Yes.
We've been looking into this to try to see, well, will he be back the following week, which would be, I think, big game there, the Titans and King Henry, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm sort of coming up with uncertainty there. So I don't know exactly if it's just that high ankle sprains, they all heal differently, and they need to see, especially on a guy who's 350 pounds, if he needs more time or not. But just not getting a concrete, he will definitely be into the window by the time it's ready kind of vibe about it.
Yeah, because I know you said a couple weeks ago that you heard it was a little worse than a high ankle sprain. It could be a little bit longer than that. So
yeah,
but they've had time to get things ready. We'll see what they do. Well, I'm sure we'll update that soon. But that's it. No, they've been hit on both sides of the football, man. They were doing well with this, and they have very good depth. They're one of the teams, of these best teams in the NFL that's got really good depth. But man, it's being tested right now, and to lose sort of a game-changing player like Goedert for potentially a while, that'll be cleared up over the next 24 to 48 hours with a shoulder injury.
Right.
Then we don't know, as I said, we don't know about A.J. Brown this week in terms of what he can and can't do because he was severely limited. We'll get into that, what the tape looked like on him. Josh Sweat, boy, that strip sack was beautiful. He was my player of the game, and I thought I got it. I was like, oh, this is great. He got the strip sack. There you go.
Yep.
And then he got hurt.
Yeah, mine was Devontae Smith, who actually had a pretty good game and a touchdown. Just obviously not enough offensive snaps in that game, and we'll get into that too. All right, we've been telling you about the craze that everybody's getting in on. That's Mojo. It's the sports stock market. It lets you invest in your favorite players. You invest in what you know. Everybody who listens to ITB, most of them, I'd say, probably know sports and NFL players better than they do Fortune 500 companies. So why not take that knowledge and then use that, like the sports stock market, invest in your favorite players? It's a really cool concept. You can buy shares in players that entitle you to a guaranteed payout that's based on that player's career-ending stats. So that's the cool part. You get to follow this player if you keep him for the rest of his career and pay dividends if he winds up having a Hall of Fame career and you got him really low one day. That's the fun part about it. And the prices will rise and fall based on those career-long projections. And you can just build a portfolio. This is why I think it's cooler a little bit than fantasy football because, Adam, you can have a great week in fantasy football, top scorers every position, and lose to a guy who just had a better week than you, and you feel bummed out. But if you have a portfolio of players who all have a great week and you're rooting for them on Sunday and Monday and Thursday, doesn't matter there is no opponent. So it's only good for your portfolio can only get better. So I know I've talked about this multiplier tab where if you get 5, you can get 5, 10, 20 times the amount of investment shares that you buy if it raises. So you 5 times amount. If a guy raises up $2, it raises up $10 for you. So there's all sorts of fun ways to be able to make yourself money and also have fun like you would if you were doing fantasy football. So here's how it works. There's 300 skill players from quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers to choose from. Each athlete has a share price. It can go up and go down. There's a guaranteed payout formula based on the objective stats, so you always know exactly what the stock is worth, and it's just a great time to really test your knowledge and also make some money off it. Mojo is available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you have the chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. All you got to do is click the link in the description box, whether you're listening to this on the podcast, we'll have it there, or on YouTube, we'll have the description link in the description box there too for $10,000 in free shares of player stock. You got to be 21 and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, you mentioned this, Adam, and I think it's worth talking. Quez Watkins is a guy who he's already up 4.9% from just because he had 80 yards. People forget he actually got 50 yards on that catch. He probably would have seen an even bigger rise if he had held on to the football and scored a touchdown. But with Dallas Goedert out, he's got a chance, Quez Watkins, to increase his stock. We know he's been vertical many times, and they've connected a couple times this year, but now it seems like there's more opportunities for that.
Yeah, but he's not a guy who commands the football a lot. He's just not. When you game plan him, he's definitely a shot play guy. I just don't see him getting the ball enough.
That's true.
I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a couple. So Zach Ertz is out indefinitely. I mean, he's basically out for the season. It's a significant knee injury. So Trey McBride was their second round pick. It was stunning when they took him. The Cardinals of all teams. They extended Zach's contract before the season started. In the spring, and the head coach finally is making this an NFL type offense. They're actually going 12 personnel. They're using tight ends. So maybe Trey McBride, get on him early. He was a second round pick, top 10 tight end for this past draft. Might as well get in early. The key to the stock market game is get in early, because I'd mentioned when Rashad Penny got hurt, I said on our show, we were actually at Rivers, I said, for Mojo players, get on Kenneth Walker right now before this game starts. Buy his shares now, because he's the man. And all they do is run the football with Pete Carroll. He doesn't want the quarterback thrown very much. And just think if he would have got a Geno Smith at beginning, holy smokes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, because this is also based on career ending and career projecting stats, I would get on. If you haven't got on AJ Brown, get on him now. He's actually down 2.58% because they only had one catch for 7 yards. So I always look for a deal. Like, I'm sure he's still, when you compare him to other wide receivers, he might be expensive because he's AJ Brown, but now you might be able to get him a little discounted rate because he's down just a little bit. So grab him now and then watch him soar for the rest of the year. Watch him soar for the rest of his career. It looks like he and Jalen Hurts are going to be a pretty good connection for years to come.
Sure.
And then you can cash out on that later. So good job getting if you go get AJ Brown. All right. As for us, we are going to start to break down this offensive tape. Yeah, let's start with offense, because there's just not a whole lot there because the Eagles didn't have the ball. I mean, it's still staggering to me, Adam, that they had the ball for 6 minutes in the first half. I mean, that's, for the Eagles, who have one time of possession almost every game by sometimes 2-1, they had the ball for 6 minutes.
It was ridiculous. I call them the time of possession kings.
Yeah.
The TOPs. It's really 6 minutes and 11 seconds. 3 series, they scored on 2 of them. And it looked like when they were up 14-7, I was like, okay, I guess we're going to get this one right. I was a little concerned when we were driving home to watch the game from Rivers Casino. I just had a feeling like, because Washington's playing really good defense, and they have a lot of. I know Heineke's he's very limited as a passer, but they're just doing enough to play good football. And I just thought that to keep it close, but I never saw what we wound up seeing. We'll get to the Eagles' defensive tape, which is disgusting at times. But offensively, it looked like they're going to roll. But I'm telling you, the AJ Brown injury changed the whole focus of everything they could do. He takes away double teams. He protects Smith because he takes those tough routes over the middle. 9 routes down the field where he gets the contested balls, he just wins. That without him, let's put it this way: he was played, as you saw, but he was so limited to what he can do. He just wasn't himself. Now, I think he was fine to go get that deep ball that got picked, but there's something he was off. I was told the tape looked like something was off with him. We'll see this week, but Pascal, by the way, really helped them in the run game. But overall, as you said, they just didn't have the ball enough. They had it for under 20 minutes for the entire game. That's not like them, as you said. I don't know if you noticed, Boston Scott came in the first series, and then he just didn't really – was a non-factor after that.
The weirdest thing ever, man. Is he I'd love to just understand the rotations, because they get the turnover, they get the strip sack, so they're inside. Where'd they get the ball? They got the ball at the what was it? The 19 when they recovered that strip sack.
Sounds definitely. Yeah, it was right. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, they're inside the 20. So sometimes that's where we see
18. Yep.
Yeah, so sometimes that's where we see Kenneth Gainwell get the because he's sort of their weird goal line or red zone back. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, they just throw Boston Scott in there for the first carry. I just don't get it. I'm not criticizing it. What I'm just saying is I don't understand what scenario that they have budgeted that would be Boston Scott's time to carry the ball. Are they trying to surprise the defense?
Maybe. I mean, he got 5 yards, and then I call him Kenny Grindwell. He's just this grinder. Like, who knew this? I would probably say of all the roles the staff has for these players, he's the one that like he's not been anywhere close to what we thought. Now he's been productive as a goal line back. I think he's got 3 rushing touchdowns inside of 10.
Right,
but that's not what they. No, he had a terrible drop on Monday night. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
He's had about 3 or 4 of those type of drops, and they're sort of incomprehensible because if you go back to his Memphis career, he was more of a wide receiver than a running back. So I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he's swimming in his head. I don't know.
Yeah, because this staff was, as we understand it, they were very instrumental in him being drafted. They loved his tape.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they've tried to. In fact, look, in training camp, he had a very more down than up. I was at the practice when he basically was told to get off the field for a little bit. He had 2 mental errors back to back.
Yeah.
So he's just, I don't know. And here's the thing now, without Goedert for a bit, they're going to have to manufacture some stuff. And AJ Brown, we don't know how he's going to play this week. We don't know what will be 75%. We'll have to see. Yeah. And unfortunately, Wednesday, it's almost certain that it's going to be a walkthrough because it's probably, they love the Wednesday walkthroughs anyway, not practicing. So, and they just had a game on Monday night. So we're not going to get a big, I'm hoping that Brown will be close to 100% because they need him. He just does so much and he's been so special.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned earlier here, when we talk about Mojo, Watkins' role, he's not, again, he doesn't get the ball a lot, but he had a nice game and they're going to have to figure it out. That there's not a lot of options here, without Goedert, and if AJ Brown's not close to what he was before the game.
So, from a philosophy standpoint, I mean, we can question why Boston Scott got the first carry, but I don't have an issue. It was said. I know I've heard some, listening to Sports Talk Radio or just seeing on social media, people felt the Eagles should have ran the ball more. I mean, if you look they score touchdowns on their first 2 possessions, passing the ball mostly. I mean, it was a rushing touchdown. That was such a short field. It was hard to see either way. But then they get a nice long drive and they get a touchdown to who was it? Who caught the set? They get the jump pass touchdown.
Yeah,
right?
I love that. Oh, that
was
was so cool.
Awesome.
That was awesome. I whether it's Brian Johnson who came out with it or whoever, that was beautiful. That's just when I said, okay, they got it going on tonight. There's no wind. It was one of these rare games at the Linc. There's no wind. They got it going on, and then such a strange game. What happened after that was one of the things you just could not see coming.
Yeah, but they were moving the ball through the air really well, and then of course it was a good enough pass from Jalen Hurts to get to AJ Brown. The defense just made a great play on it. I mean, it was in AJ Brown's hands, and then I can't remember 22's name off the top of my head. Derek Frost, right? He just kind of wrenched it away. I mean, 2 weeks ago against the Steelers, that's a touchdown, but this time the guy makes a great play. So I don't have if AJ Brown catches that, like we all kind of thought he might, even though it was a difficult catch, that's 3 touchdowns on 3 drives. So I have zero issue with their number of runs to passes on the first 3 drives, and then of course they really only had 3 real possessions in the first half. The last one, they get the ball with like under a minute to go.
You have to understand, they're in almost every game, they're heavy pass first half. Okay.
Yes.
In this game, there were 15 passes, only 4 runs, and as you said, they the ball just over 6 minutes. That's what they do. That's now by the way, the pass to Goedert, if you saw it, the design was awesome. It wasn't exactly accurate. He threw it to his side. Thank goodness that Goedert adjusted. Mm-hmm. But hey, it got there. And they're coming out aggressive. This is what you want. You saw them. The one thing you can do, I know it could be, although they did run the ball well, Sanders did run the ball well, there's no doubt. Their double teams were good and outside zones were good with Sanders. When you look at kind of what they do, the Eagles are an exceptional passing team, and you saw them house Washington in the first matchup. That second quarter when they scored 24 points, it was like it felt like they could have scored 40 in that. They had no answer. Now, Wild Goose was inactive. They didn't have him to go after, but they still had success. And but as we said, to move on from here, they just didn't have the ball. If they would have had the ball more, maybe, as you said, they could have had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. By the way, lost in this game. We said the pregame show, Washington's going to blitz. They got, I think they have 2 blitzes that they really like to run, sort of a Mike Zimmer-esque double A gap blitz and then a Mike Fire blitz. They did those. The Eagles were well prepared for those blitzes. If you notice, there were a couple of times where they caught them on quick outs or screens against the blitz that got really good yardage. So the Eagles, again, everything gets kind of foiled by the turnovers and ball. They got out ball controlled, but when the Commanders did some things, the Eagles were prepared for it. They just didn't secure the ball very well.
Yeah, so
that's a separate story.
Yeah. Although I think some of those turnovers were kind of fluky, but anyway, it's definitely an aberration and certainly not the way that they're taught. And I don't think that'll happen again. Washington went with big nickel almost the entire game. So they went with Farce, you said, who had the pick, Cam Curl and Bobby McCain, who started his career as a corner for Miami, has played safety in recent years, which you see a lot as guys get older. When they slow down, they go to safety. And St. Jude's
Corey Graham-esque.
Yeah, right, exactly. Corey Graham was with our very early career. Then he moved to safety. Yeah. Right, Bills. Right, exactly right. James Smith-Williams did get the start at DN, but because Chase Young was not ready. But and John Bostic, as we expected, filled in at middle linebacker. But St. Jude's, by the way, no matter what the Washington Commander fans think, they're wrong. That was absolutely a penalty. Yes, they were both pushing off. This is, we call it down the middle here. We're not taking the Eagles' side. Mm-hmm. And you heard the rules expert, his last name was it Parry?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Dave Perry, right? Was it Dave Perry?
I can't remember his first name. Yeah, he does a great job, and he explained it. Look, he was very matter of fact. Because absolutely, that was pass interference.
Yeah,
because he leveraged to get. You're not allowed to restrict movement by leverage. You cannot do that downfield, and that's a penalty. I know that it's somewhat ticky-tack, but by the letter of the rule, always remember, folks, this is what Mike Pereira told me years ago. Our job is not to legislate intent. It's our job to go by the way we're taught the rule and legislate it. That's it. You're not there to judge. Like the BG penalty, it's a shame.
Same thing. Yep. It doesn't matter if he was trying to hold up or he did it. You did it.
He can't think it. Right.
It
is what it is.
Totally agree. Totally fair. All right. So also offensively, what else? We saw a big nickel for Washington. The offensive line. We talked about that going into the game, how they were having some protection issues against the Texans, but I didn't see anything egregious there. I thought that Jalen Hurts was, for the most part, well protected. He took a sack that I thought was on him because he kind of ran around there looking for something to do.
Yeah, the one that he took late, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He I don't know who his hot was on that play, but he should have gotten rid of it. But overall, he was fine. There were people saying he didn't play well. That's not what we were told. He was fine.
Oh, no way. Really? Yeah. People think that?
Yeah, because again, they're looking at numbers.
Yeah,
you got to have better context. Like we'll get to Washington's run game. You got to have better context to say, well, the Eagles stopped them. They only ran for 3 yards a carry. That's not the point. The point is, the Eagles couldn't get off the damn field.
Yes. Yeah. No, I have. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Of course, there's 2 or 3 plays. You mentioned the ball placement a few times, but that Jalen Hurts is not anywhere near the list of reasons that the Eagles lost this game. So I thought he was fine. I thought it was good.
Yeah. I mean, again, they had the ball. They scored on 2 out of the 3 possessions of the first half.
Yeah.
The Brown drop, technically dropped. The Gainwell drop. A couple were thrown away. No, and then again, AJ Brown being limited. I hope he's okay. Because there's been no update out there.
Right.
And I was on Tuesday. You and I were working on the Goedert stuff and the Davis stuff and some other, just the Maddox and seeing if it's going to be more than 4 weeks and stuff like that. And just trying to figure out some of these roles now with Goedert out a bit. But no, Hurts is Now I'll tell you, it's interesting because Goedert's been a security blanket. This is uncharted water here, man. This is, as I said earlier, the coach is now really going to have to. I think Sirianni's got to get more involved to help out Steichen here. They're going to Jason Michael, the tight ends coach, is going to have to dial up help these guys. He's, by the way, Jason Michael called plays for the Titans many years ago. It's not like he hasn't been involved in play calling. So this is
right.
It's going to be a group effort here, folks. It's going to be a little bit harder for these guys.
No doubt about it. All right, you ready to get into this defensive intel? Are we ready to move on from the offense?
Let's see if I'm protection. Passing game in the second half, we're told. I'm just looking at our notes that we got execution issues with Brown limited. Only a few instances where the receivers clearly won the second half. They had trouble because of Brown being limited.
Yeah, and then Goedert obviously left after his turnover. Yeah, I mean,
and because asking Watkins to win, he's not a guy again who commands it a lot. Yeah, this is going to be uncharted water here going forward, but we'll see. But no, that's it. Offensively, as I said, there wasn't a lot because they had the ball less than 20 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, one of the faster tape watches there have to be for when you're just watching the offense. Yeah. Like, oh, okay, 15 minutes gone by. All right, let's get into this defensive tape intel. First, we're going to remind you to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto, so make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com. We'll pause real quick for a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you happen to go to Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. If you can't stop in, go visit them at SkyMotorCars.com.
That's right.
All right, Adam, where do you want to start with this defensive break?
Stay up. We'll start it up front because it's this game from the interior is very similar, we're told, to the Detroit game where they got moved out of position, stood up. It's just this is what I came up with when you and I talked earlier this week when we ran it by some people.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the scheme that they're running, which is more or less Vic Fangio's scheme, right?
Yeah.
If you look at Fangio's teams that he coached with the Niners, the Bears, the Colts before he had to leave with Jim Moore because they went from a 34 to a 43 front under Tony Dungy. Even Carolina, a lot of people don't know this. He was a D coordinator when they had an incredible run with Lamar Lathan and Sam Mills and Kevin Green. Wow. Yeah, and he started in the mid '80s with the Stars, and that's where he got to know Jim Mora.
Mm-hmm.
His fronts were almost all the same. The front three, if you just look at it, the 3-man front plus the 2 overhangs, the 3 guy, the down linemen were almost all run guys. They weren't pass rushers,
right?
So look at Akeem Hicks was an absolute stud under Fangio with the Bears. He's older now; he's with the Bucks. Yep. But it's just Justin Smith. You might remember him with the Niners. Did both, but he could play in 2 schemes. But if you went through like 40 players that Vic coached, it's very hard to find great pass rushers as down linemen for him. They're there to blow the run up, 2-gap penetrators, get up, blow it up the run. Yep. And then you got the stand-up pass rushers. That's the way it goes. And here, it makes you wonder. We talked about this weeks ago, but it reared its ugly head again. Cox and Hargrave are very good pass rushers, but are they really good fits for this game?
It's I think it's a very fair question. And, we've talked to a lot of people about this. And I was on the phone with someone who's, very familiar with the Eagles personnel, their tape, has been watching it, breaking it down. We had a really long conversation about the scheme that they've been playing since the start of last year, the deficiencies that they've shown in the run since the start of last year at times. At times they've been able to manage it, overcome it. At other times they haven't looked good, but they've been able to win the game, like you mentioned the Lions game. But at the end of the day, you're playing a 5-1, 5-2 front. You're playing 5 down linemen, right? So that gives you, or 5-man front. That gives you as you mentioned, the 3 interior linemen. One of them plays over the center. That guy's responsible for 2 gaps, right? The A gap between the center and the right guard, the A gap between the center and the left guard. Okay. And then the other 2 linemen are sort of whatever technique they're playing, whether it's 4-eye, whether it's 5. I mean, you can visualize it, but you basically have 3 linemen for 4 gaps. Okay, so do the math on that. It means it means the guy playing nose tackle, which is Jordan Davis when he's healthy. When it's not, it's been Marlon Tuipulotu or Javon Hargrave. That guy's got to play 2 gaps really well. But they don't have anybody that can play 2 gaps that well, other than Jordan Davis, who again only plays those 2 gaps well for a certain number of snaps. And the Commanders clearly took aim at that. They ran most of their plays up the gut, up the middle. And by the way, when you have that one gap that's uncovered, now you have to have the linebacker come in and fill that gap. And the Eagles are small at linebackers. You mentioned Vic Fangio's defense. There's no Patrick Willis or Navarro Bowman here. Those guys were so nasty, along with Justin Smith and Alden Smith. I mean, what a great front he had. Brooks in San Francisco.
No wonder they made it. Alden Smith before he had his issues. Holy smokes! And then Ahmad Brooks on the other side. So let me ask you a question. Let me just
finish the one point. I'm sorry, okay. I didn't mean to get up. So 3 guys for 4 gaps leaves 1 gap open a lot, and a linebacker has to come in and sort of make a head-on tackle, which is not how this defense is built, and that's been a real issue. Especially, and I think you brought this up either on the pregame show or last podcast. People who've watched Eagles tape, they say the Eagles aren't even 2-gapping when they should be, or they're not holding their gaps the way they should be. Guys like Fletcher Cox, guys like Javon Hargrave are still doing this thing where they're playing the run on the way to the quarterback, which is the old scheme. 2 people brought that up to me, what you said. So now we've got at least 3 or 4. We're all noticing that the Eagles are just trying to run upfield and get sacks. Why is that? Now, I can't be in their heads, but people who are smarter than me and better than me did point out, or know more than me, that both Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox have made their money in their careers on getting sacks, okay, on getting upfield. So they're both in contract years, by the way. So, I mean, they're free agents at the end of the year. So, can you connect those dots? Maybe. I don't know. We'd have to be inside their heads to really know if that's what they're thinking. But the bottom line is, as you pointed out recently, they are not always showing gap integrity. And I think there were some times you saw Washington run draws, right? They're in the shotgun and they snap the ball. Antonio Gibson or Robinson to the left, which invites those guys to get upfield because it looks like a pass at first, but then they hand it off and you see the guys go up the middle where the gaps are uncovered because the defensive linemen are going up the field. So you've got a personnel and a scheme issue, but Adam, it was pointed out to me that I don't want to put it all on John Gannon or scheme or trying to run Vic Fangio when you don't have that personnel. Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox have stopped the run before. They've played well against the run before. There's no excuse for them not to be doing their jobs. If they just did better, then they can probably do a better job of overcoming something like you saw Monday night. So it's not just all on Gannon and the scheme, but you've got to also put this on the interior linemen and say, guys, you got to do a better job. You just have to get off your block. You have to fight harder.
On the 4-eye, there's a couple things I wanted to say here or just discuss. And one Fangio point, which we were talking about a minute ago, but just to expand on that too. So before we go to linebackers and DBs. So when you're running this front, it's real simple. If you're playing the 4-eye is you're funneling the run. You're not rushing. Your job is not to get to the passer, so to speak. It's more because the only way you can do it, you would actually have to redirect and loop. Someone told me he was actually an expert at it because that's not the function of it. The 4-eye to rush the passer. You're a run defender, and that's Cox had a problem with it last year. He was very vocal about it. Remember when he was. Everyone knew it got the word got out and no one denied it that he had issues with the way he's being used. He wants to rush the passer. And then what we said after the game against Detroit is we said the truth is the tape. This tape is gonna be so bad. They're so prideful. There's no way that they're not gonna be better next game, and they were better. The tape tells you can't. Remember we asked Trey in the pregame show, what happens when there's bad tape? Because you dread that meeting well, if it was a Sunday game, the Monday, or in this case, the Tuesday tape, when you get in there, it's embarrassing. It's because, Belichick Belichick's famous for having his pointer. Tom Brady could go 50 for 50, but he'd find the 2 bad passes. He goes, "What the hell's this?" Stuff like that. And this is and Trey was talking about Juan Castillo and what Juan would do to point it out. This is not the way we teach it and all that stuff. So this continues to happen. This is not good. I'm not saying it's going to keep them from being a Super Bowl team if that's how good they are, but I remember Bill Polian saying before we move on, Bill said when they struggled in the Super Bowl run when they beat Chicago, what Tony Dungy did is he didn't tell them to do more, he told them to do less. They simplified the whole thing. Right. Just get up. Because they were historically bad against the run. Right. And Tony was never overly concerned. He knew they had to do better and figure it out. So here's the question. Do they start reducing what they're asking them to do? Because this cannot continue. Washington's offensive line's a bottom 5. Right. They killed them. They're double team. Another thing, they're double teams. Andrew Norwell has not played high-level football probably in 5 years. Okay, he looked like he was back at 25 years old. I mean, even Trey Turner, we've talked about this guy for 2 years. 4 teams didn't want this guy.
Yeah,
they got him. They got, you just said it. They got him up the middle. The Eagles gave up 17 runs of 4 yards or more. This can't happen. You can't against this team. You should have seen Greg Cosell's notes. I read his notes for FantasyPoints.com. He was talking about the Washington struggling to run the football. Right. Well, they didn't struggle in this game. I don't care what the 3 yards. They're just going to get off the field.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question becomes, well, what can Jonathan Gannon do? Because he cannot snap his fingers and make these guys into 320-pound run stuffers overnight, right? It was said to me that the way to combat what they're doing wrong is to do more line movement up front, slanting, I was told. And it's hard for me without a whiteboard to really go through what slanting is, but it's kind of a way of defensive linemen just shooting into the gaps a certain way that you don't let the offensive lineman get up on you and double team, and it funnels the run back to the edges where your linebackers are better off making tackles moving side to side than having to come up into the A gaps, because basically the slanting takes the A gaps away. If you're slanting your lineman into those gaps, it makes the running back have to go to the B or C, and that allows your linebackers to be making lateral tackles instead of head-on tackles with offensive linemen coming at them. I haven't been able to myself watch the tape, but I think maybe you have said or somebody told me he did start doing things differently in the second half. Clearly,
yes,
the run were better in the second half. Now, why wouldn't you do that in the first half? I mean, it's a good question. All I will say to that is I've asked some people, and you can do it, but as soon as you start also doing something differently than what you have been doing, then the offense is going to wind up adjusting to that anyway. So the point I think he was trying to make was you got to be able to do what you do well, or at least adequately. And then obviously if you can't, then you make the adjustment, but you don't just start off right away doing it. But I mean, we've seen this enough where I do think Jonathan Gannon has to either start getting his line moving earlier, maybe it was also said to me, maybe if he just brings his linebackers up into the gaps a little bit faster, so you don't see double teams up front and you got those guys already flowing. I know a lot of people say, well, why don't they run blitz? Well, that's great until they play action, and then they have a totally vacated middle of the field.
They've done some. Yeah, they've done a little bit. But
you have to pick your spots when you do that. You have to know that they're running, or else you're going to get killed.
Yeah, you're right. You set it up very well. The one thing I was going to say about Fangio, if you look at the play, one thing that teams would tell us who played against Vic over the years, why his defenses were so good, so stout against the run, so disciplined. He's a selective blitzer. That's what Gannon does. He's an execution-style defense. He's not super aggressive. He's like, okay, beat us,
right?
Beat our guys, because we play the same way. We execute. Our zones are super tight. When the Eagles' defense has been great this season, at times they have been. Their zones have been so good. The Minnesota game, and plus they were a little bit more aggressive that game. The first Washington game, they absolutely annihilated their offense. They obviously Wentz held on the ball long and they blitzed well. But they were so stout that was their most dominant game of the season with the first Washington matchup. I got to give Scott Turner credit here. He said, number one, they're not asking Heineke to throw the ball much. They know who he is. You can't put a lot on him. And they said, here's what we're doing. Stop us. And they couldn't stop. They had one run of 11 yards, but it was like, what do you call it? land of 1,000 paper cuts. It was 3 yards, 4 yards,
Death by
5 yards.
1,000 paper cuts. Yeah.
Yeah, they just cannot get. It's embarrassing. This line, it's coaching and execution was great. We'll watch it. Give it up to these guys who did a phenomenal job. This should never have happened. This is a line you should dominate. Now, I couldn't imagine what that tape study. I mean, I know coaches say sometimes it's not as bad as you thought it was when you're at the game, but remember now, folks, they have the Microsoft tablets, the Surface. You can see the players and the coaches looking at them. It's not like they had to wait till halftime to make adjustments. So as you said, I don't know why. I don't know what they could not get done in the first half, but they got crushed on doubles, inside zone, second level runs to get to the linebackers. Now, because the backs aren't explosive, they weren't going to get downfield.
Right.
Like Jonathan Taylor might. We'll talk about
that's the big thing. Yeah. The next 3 weeks are going to be pretty rough. If they don't figure it out.
So we spent a little bit more time here because we did a lot. Jeff and I did a lot of digging here on the issues here. And I thought it deserved, you and I agreed. We wanted to make sure we nailed this thing.
Yeah. Let me add one more layer to this. Only because it seems pertinent after having these discussions about your personnel and how you're going to assemble. If they're going to continue to play this front, and I imagine they would if Jonathan Gannon is still going to be the defensive coordinator after this year going forward, they will have to make some serious decisions about their personnel and sort of not just personnel, but philosophy, because they've loaded up on guys who they're all about burst. They've been about burst and getting to the quarterback from Andy Reid, Jim Johnson to Jim Schwartz, and still now, even though they're running a different philosophical scheme. And I think about, Tom Donahoe became kind of a poster guy for being a disgruntled employee when the Eagles picked Milton Williams in the third round a couple of years ago, and he didn't give the DAP back to Howie. And, this is a guy who came from Pittsburgh, and he's very used to odd fronts, and you know what it takes if you're going to run an odd front to be able to do things. And, I'm not in Tom's head. I don't know. We know Aleem McNeil was another defensive tackle that was on the board. He's 330 pounds. He plays for the Lions now. He's a big run stuffing type of guy. And maybe that's the time. Perhaps Tom knew something, he got people made fun of him and everything because he didn't toe the company line and stuff. But I mean, the Eagles have struggled to stop the run going back to last year. So always under this regime, they have struggled to stop the run. And at times they have been humiliated. The first 6 games of the year last year, they were humiliated. The Lions game, they weren't because they won, but they gave up an obscene number of rushing yards. The Washington game they just played, for them, that was humiliating. If something happens this much, you've got to figure it out from a personnel standpoint. Oh, the Houston game, exactly. Right now, their best run defense, Adam, is scoring more points than the opponent to take it out of their ability to run. That's their best defense.
And it's funny because when on that point, remember, Sirianni downplayed it more than once. When earlier in the season, we were up big, and it's okay. We'd like them to run. Actually, remember when Dallas came back? They made the game way closer than it should have been. Yep. They ran like crazy in the third quarter because the Eagles were backed off. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do here because, they'll make the corrections. That's what the tape is for, and the guys will have to feel like they have pride. They'll be better. But this has been the problem with this group. They're veterans. They see it. They correct it. Then 2 or 3 games later, it's a problem again. So this is before we get the linebackers here, I just want to make this
perfect point. They can play better, but it always winds up reverting back to them. That's
the
point.
issue. Yeah, that's the issue. So these guys, they have to just suck it up. They just can't. There'll be times you could rush the passer, but you just do whatever it's designed to do. Because when you get out of your gaps, when you're trying to get a feel when you're not supposed to, if they run, you're getting gashed, and that's what has happened here.
All right. We've said our say on the D-line, on the running game. I am very curious to see what they do to adjust, not just from a player playing better standpoint, but schematically. Like last year, they benched Eric Wilson. They played Davion Taylor. They they moved their linebackers up. I think you're going to probably have to move a safety into the box a little bit more against Jonathan Taylor. But so we'll see. They did it last year. I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
Well, now that last year they did. I remember that. Then it's Steven Nelson issue.
Yep.
See, you're playing 2 deep safeties.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get to the end. Let's get to the next part of this because we're going to tie this all together. On what you were talking about, possibly doing that there. See this game, and this is another thing that's done me because Slay's been elite. Quite frankly, pass coverage has been elite this season for the most part.
Yeah, he's been great.
Overall, they gave up so many plays,
Mm-hmm.
crossers, deep overs. I was like, what? What? Now we were told a couple things. The communication was not very good between the guys handing off into their they have a handoff system.
Yep.
Which they've been so good at the communication. They're so good at it. They had a bad game with it. They gave up. I mean, I know Terry McLaurin's a fantastic player, but my goodness gracious, could you? I mean, they also got beat on the 9 round.
Right.
I don't know. I just they had some big plays against them. This is not. It wasn't, as you said earlier. It wasn't just the run. They got hit. They got hit by the pass too.
Listen, the run killed them, like you said, by 1,000 cuts. But the backbreakers was really their pass defense, and that should not be absolved because we focus so much on the run. They gave up a 3rd and 10. They gave up a 3rd and 6. They gave up a 3rd and 8. They gave up a 3rd and 5, and they gave up a 3rd and 2 pass. Okay, that was not much of a play action. So we can sit here and talk all about how you gave up all these runs. Well, they never gave up a run more than 11 yards, as you pointed out. They gave up many passes of more than 8 to 10 yards on those 3rd downs for the team to be able to convert those 3rd downs. So that was, as you said, also a big issue. There was soft coverage, which we see time and time again. And the adjustments again came too late there.
Oh yeah, and they got crushed whenever they play so much zone, and they got hit on cover 2. They got hit badly. The back end stuff, because this is the first game they had some bad breakdowns. This stuff will be way better going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt that at all. To me, to close this out here, it's the run stuff. I'm fascinated with Jonathan Taylor. See, they also have had issue. We'll give you a 20-second preview of Indy's issues on offense. Matt Ryan can't move. He's stationary, which is great because Heineke can move.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Nelson's had a down year. He's not had a great year. They've had major issues. They're down to their 3rd string left tackle. It's crazy. Dennis Kelly, old friend Dennis Kelly, that same guy, got traded for your guy, Dorial Green Beckham, in 2016. he was their backup. He was filling at left tackle. Matt Pryor started week 1 at left tackle. Now they're down to a project, Bernard Raymond, at left tackle. So they've got problems there. The Eagles should have their way, but they see the double teams. What I've learned for this game against Washington, you let it just double team the Eagles.
Yeah.
Just see if they're willing to see if they're going to play the run correctly and get off the blocks and blow the run up. We'll see.
We will see. Linebackers, not much. I mean, TJ Edwards and Kaiser White played a lot, obviously, because they were in a bigger nickel a lot with both of those linebackers out there. Again, it's tough for them when the run's coming right at them, when linemen are coming right at them. They need to be cleaner. They need to be cleaned by the D-line's got to keep them clean, and we just didn't see that enough.
2 things. Josiah Scott had some good snaps. He wasn't bad. He's obviously not Maddox. And then Robert Quinn was not impactful on his 22 snaps. They have to figure this out to free him up.
Mm-hmm.
He's played in the scheme before, Chicago, so I don't know, and also with the Rams, more or less. So I know he's new and all that. This is his first full week of practice last week.
Yeah.
But I know already people are saying he's washed. You knew that was coming. You knew people were going to start saying that.
Of course.
On social, I always look during the games. In fact, I was on our Discord. It was fun. It was good to see people. A nice group on the Discord of our Patreon subscribers. And I'm sure I'll do that on Sunday. And it was great because we were all doing like play-by-play. It was kind of funny. Oh, wait, great play there. Oh, oops. Uh-oh. What happened there? What's going on with the run defense? It's just kind of funny. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, so that's basically the defense. Oh, one last thing before we get out of here. It was just because someone said it to me, and it's not a bad idea. If you remember the preseason, right, first preseason game, the Eagles did not come out in their 5-1 or 5-2 look. It kind of took everybody surprised. They came out in a 3-down lineman, 1 overhang player look, which is sort of like a 4-3 look because there's 4 guys at the line of scrimmage, but one of them is a stand-up because that's what Hassan Reddick does. One of the persons I spoke to who had a long talk about this said, without Jordan Davis there, without a natural nose, maybe Jonathan should consider going to sort of a 4-3 look. Now, I said, well, Hassan Reddick can't be a D end. You're not going to play him with his hand in the dirt. He's not big enough. It's not his game. And he said, "You're right, but you could have Fletch and Javon Hargrave in their natural, normal 4-3 techniques. Josh Sweat handing the dirt, and on the other side, the weak side, you have Hassan Reddick as a stand-up rusher, which is a little bit like the formation that they were playing in the preseason there. So maybe something to consider there. If you play a little bit more of a 4-3 look and you get that line moving, you do some stunting and things like that, you can avoid the double teams and get after the run a little bit. But I don't know if that's going to happen, but just something that was thrown out to me.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
overall, it's only one loss. They're 8-1 now, and they play the Colts, who are 1-0 under interim head coach Jeff Saturday.
Right.
So we'll see. But look, they've got Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce is a rookie out of UC.
Yep.
They got like Mo Alley Cox and they got like 4 blocking tight ends.
And finally, Paris Campbell is looking like a wide receiver in the NFL.
Oh, he looks really good. Finally, it's only taken to his final. It's amazing what happens. You stay healthy in the final year of your deal. No, in fact, I'll be interested to see if they spread the Eagles out because they can with those 3 receivers.
Mm-hmm.
But Washington said we're not doing that, even though we got Jahan Dotson back. We're going big boy football. And the Eagles' run defense couldn't handle it. So I know everyone's saying, that's the blueprint now. We'll see. We don't know what Jeff Saturday, an all-pro center, thinks, but we shall see on Sunday.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.